Prospect 1.
The Houston Astros.
The Houston Astros top 10 fantasy minor league roster starts with number 1, no surprise, Kyle Tucker. Number 2, Forrest Whitley, big-time ace. Number 3, Jordan Alvarez. Number 4, J.B. Bukowskis. Let's say that correctly. Number 5, Gilberto Celestino. Number 6, J.J. Manchevich. Number 7, David Paulina. Number 8, CNL Perez. Number 9, Fredius Nova. Oh, man, the Houston Astros are testing me. And number 10, Rogelio Armenteros. That is your top 10 from the Houston Astros. Definitely probably butchered a little bit in there. Probably Fredius Nova. I definitely am just butchering his first name.
You know what's great about this is we used to have a guy that would only draft dudes with cool names. And it's like this is like what the Astros are doing. They have like all these guys with really cool names and then Kyle Tucker.
Forrest Whitley. Yeah, you're right. Forrest Whitley, Jordan Alvarez, and then, Kyle Tucker.
Jordan, Gilberto Malatevich. How do you say that guy's name? Matevich. Matevich.
He played for U of A too. I really like him too. He's played
your neighbor. You should know him.
Yeah, he played with Bobby Dahlback and Kevin Newman. Good team
Bobby
over there at the U of A.
Rogelio. Then they got Miguel Angel down here and some Corbins.
Manchevich.
Harrios. They've got a lot of good names here. And then Kyle Tucker at the top of the system.
Well, speaking of Kyle Tucker, he was the one that was out here in the Arizona Fall League. Saw him a ton. He's a really interesting guy, too. He's got a very laid-back mentality to himself. I was a little critical when I first saw him. I was like, is he trying? Like, he really...
all right.
There's a little bit to his face, that's kind of a little, all right. He was just really like he wasn't... I don't want to say the competitive juices weren't there or anything like that, but... This was very business to him in the Arizona Fall League. The results were not there. He struggled for average. The power. I mean, I saw the power in BP. I saw the work being put in BP. But I was kind of curious at what that was. And when I was with Eno Saris at the Fall Stars game, it was over when he was chatting with Kyle Tucker. And Tucker was really because I had kind of pressed into Eno. I was like, it's really interesting because, some people are questioning his work ethic or the skills diminishing, maybe not work ethic. I wouldn't want to claim it as that, but, what was the deal? What was he trying to accomplish here? And, Eno kind of walked around kind of asking him that question. And Kyle was like, I'm not worried about the results, because he was like, what about launch angle and all this? And he's like, I'm here to get my reps. He's like, I'm here to get full season reps in. I'm just doing my stuff. I'm not worried about the results as long as I am accomplishing the tasks that are put in front of me. And I was
that's another Dazed and Confused reference. Like, I'm just here to drink beer and kick ass, and we're almost out of beer.
That was Kyle Tucker. That was totally Kyle Tucker. And it's unfortunate just because he's such a huge talent that the AFL was just a tad bit less, at least for me, because I was really, really stoked for seeing him. On the season, though, he hit 274, 25 homers, and 21 stolen bases. This was a really big boost in power because in 2016, all of his years, 15 and 16, did not combine to what he did here. He actually doubled them. He had 12 homers in 15 and 16, hit 25 in 2017. And that's what, and a lot of people kind of look at was like, oh, did you make the adjustment of trying to hit for power? You were sacrificing your average to hit for more power. And he just really, it wasn't too much into it. He was just, he was advancing through the system. He was doing what he was doing. His strikeouts were a little bit up. They were definitely up in the Fall League. The stolen bases are encouraging. This is just the way
he's developing. It's not something that he's doing knowingly, I guess.
Yeah, and to me, I look at him and I think it would be really exciting if there were people that were kind of down on him. If they see a 274 average and they're like, okay, the power and speed, I don't know who's really going to be down on him, but this dude's a top 10 prospect. He's hands down a top 10 prospect. I would want to be aggressive to own him because he's a 2020 threat every single season. And if you're playing in Houston, the dude could drop 30 homers. He's got this big lofty swing. It gets a little bit ahead of him and he got fooled by off-speed stuff. But he's got quick wrists. He's got a big lofty swing. He's going to hit for power. And if that speed holds, everyone is going to want to own him. So I'm encouraged, though I do think the speed and the stolen base attempts could go down as he gets older, and the Astros might just mute it in general. Look what happened with George Springer. But Kyle Tucker, top 10 prospect, and I mean, just easily sits atop here as number one.
What do you think about getting him in up this year? Is this year where he breaks through, or would you say maybe one more year?
No, I think it's definitely possible. I mean, the Astros have proven themselves to not be afraid to go from Double-A to the majors.
Derek Fisher, who was I guess maybe the junior version of the type of prospect that Tucker is now, right?
Yeah, and think about Correa. Correa moved up the system as well.
Yeah,
and what and their plan with him. I mean, like I said, he acknowledged it. He said to Eno, I mean, not to me, but I was right there. He's talking to Eno in the interview, and he just says, I'm here to get my extra at-bats. That's why I'm here, is to accumulate quote-unquote full season at-bats, because the previous year he had 430. This year he had 460, but then add another whatever he got, 80 or 100 or whatever it was in the Arizona Fall League. He's now up over 500. They want him to be ready for the majors. So if there was a major injury, I mean, you have to think, Derek Fisher is kind of the guy that's set, pending what they're doing with their roster, if he's not already, going to have a role. But Kyle Tucker, I would say, if they made a move or there was any devastating injuries and Fisher wasn't working out, or let's say Fisher and Springer, or Fisher and, whoever the hell else, I could see them going to Kyle Tucker to try to get it. But don't be shocked if he doesn't come up this year and it's like a mid-early 2019.
Is there anybody else? Because, I mean, look, this system was huge, but like you said, Springer came up, Correa came up. Like, they're kind of emptying it out. They traded away some guys to get Justin Verlander. So
they got a lot of good guys, though.
Is there anybody else you want to gush about? Because I see another guy up here inside your top 20.
Yes, I do want to gush about that guy.
Okay,
gush
about that guy.
There's a couple guys to gush about, but in the pointed questions we can kind of go there. But Forrest Whitley is a dude. He is a dude. I mean, I've had James on here, and everyone knows who's listened to this. James has Forrest Whitley as his number one pitcher in the prospect game. Like, he's over Kopech, he's over Alex Reyes, he's over anybody. He is his number one guy, and it's hard to blame him. The guy had one of the best, if not I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, one of the best K per nines in all of the minor leagues. He struck out 143 over 92 innings, a 2.8 ERA, and the guy only walked 34 guys in 92. I mean, think of that. He struck 143 out, and he walked 34. I mean, he's special. He's got a special mix of pitches as well. Forrest Whitley deserves to be aggressive on. And it was actually funny, in the RotoWire Dynasty Invitational that I'm doing, the RDI draft, as people are listening to this, it'll be either over or way gone, Forrest Whitley went right after me, and someone was like, hey, you're going to win, and all now, why would you change? And I was like, well, I didn't take Forrest Whitley, but I wanted to. I really wanted to take him. He is a plus fastball, plus curveball, a really good slider and changeup, and pretty decent control. And he's a monster. He's 6'7" on the mound. I think Forrest Whitley could be special. And as you mentioned, he is inside my top 25. That's how highly I think of him. He is in the elite class of starting pitchers in my eyes. He's with for fantasy too. It's the Kopechs, the Reyeses. There's a couple rookies that I value in there. Be very, very aggressive on Forrest Whitley and Kyle Tucker.
Is there anybody else that you want to talk about? Or, I mean, there's a lot of guys in here. Is there anyone that's going to make an impact this season? Like, I know Paulino could come up this year. Paulino came up a little bit last year, didn't he?
Well, Paulino.
Or am I making that up?
No, he had been in the majors, but he was suspended. He was suspended for the PED stuff. So he had about 29 innings in the majors, and then he was popped and he was put out. But he was starting, which I really thought was interesting, because you had Francis Martez, who I always like both of those guys I kind of think could be relief pitchers. But it seemed like the organization was moving for Martez to be the starter and Paulina to be the reliever. You and I don't know if you remember this, we saw Paulina in the Arizona Fall League, and there was this at-bat in the Fall Stars game of 2016. You and I were actually standing up there with Steve Gardner interviewing him, and Paulina was going against Eloy Jimenez, and Eloy Jimenez just smoked a liner right at him, and he just, boom, just catches it, because Paulina is a hard thrower, but he's also a cheater, and he's, I don't know, maybe rotation, but probably bullpen and Martez. But as far as impact right now, there's not going to be any significant impact. Though I will tell you,
JD Davis has a ton of power.
Yeah. JD Davis is one of those guys who still, there's guys that don't qualify at rookies anymore, like Colin Moran and AJ Reed and Derek Fisher. Those guys don't qualify as prospects anymore. They'll make the value. JD Davis could, and I should throw out, I'm not with this 100%, but James has a thought that he thinks Forrest Whitley could be up by June or July. I would not call that crazy because he'd almost be a 21-year-old, and he has just like rocketed the system. I mean, he finished, at Double-A, but I would think that like the Astros would be in some need. And, here's my battle, dude. If the Astros are in need and they're competing, I'm not sure they would want to go to the minor league ranks. I feel like they would try to make an acquisition. If the Astros were struggling, maybe they would, and they move some pieces. Charlie Morton's not working anymore. They would want to make the move for Forrest Whitley. So as a competing team, I find
Lance McCullers is always hurt.
Yeah, so Lance McCullers is always hurt.
They could be in a spot where they need him.
That's a good point, and that would be where it is. So I don't see significant time for Forrest Whitley this coming season because he only logged 92 innings last year. I think he needs to log 130, maybe go to the fall league next year, and then he's in that conversation. So I wouldn't see any impact. So it's minimal from the Astros.
What about value picks? It seems like you could pick a lot of these guys as value picks or sleeper picks.
Okay, yeah. See, I got to balance that then between sleepers and okay. This guy kind of mixes between them, but I really like Gilberto Celestino. That's a player that I would probably be aggressive on. I've got him. He's inside my top. He's in like my top 175. I'll give you that. You can check out the ranks if you want to see it. He's an 18-year-old. He'll turn 19 when the season starts. Last year he hit 268. 4 homers, 10 stolen bases. 2016, the power rose. The stolen bases went down a little bit. I think this is going to be that big year because he spent the last 2 years between the Dominican Summer League, the GCL, and then he was in the Appalachian Rookie League. We're going to go to A-ball. He did some
traveling, didn't he?
He did some traveling. I think this is the year that Celestino can break out. So I want to be in on him. So deeper leagues, you got, I'm not sure if you could do it with a 12-man 10 minor league roster, but just a hair more, I would really consider Celestino because I think he could kind of break out. So, but that's why I see him as a value. Otherwise, Manchevich, I'm probably higher on. I've got him in the 200 range. He might play second or first. I think he's just one of those college bats with a lot of power. Nova is another one, but that might be, I'm kind of mixing sleepers a little bit here, so I'll just kind of break it there. I'm mixing sleepers and values to say that Nova, Manchevich, Celestino, I think those are good values. Yordan Alvarez is a top 100 player. He got a little bit of time in the Arizona Fall League, and I got to see one game of him, and he's just a beast. And I know James freaking loves him. I think at one time James was saying that he's Alvarez is his number one fantasy first baseman. So this is a guy that's got a knack for being able to like keep the ball in play so he's not hitting 230 while also hitting some massive power. So I don't know. The Astros are a really interesting team. At the bottom they've got a few guys, but the top end is pretty exciting, and they go beyond top 10. I mean, I've got about 18 guys that are inside the top 500 that come from the Astros.
And that's kind of, they're fourth in this division. So that's kind of a big deal when you have so many guys from the system. Not all of them are super highly ranked. A couple of them are, but there's no kind of middle. You have 2 guys that are very highly ranked. You have one guy who is on his way up, and then a bunch of dudes way down that list after that. Yeah, I mean, the Mariners, they hold themselves kind of back, and then I really think Astros, Rangers, A's, and Angels, they kind of hold themselves in the same weight. They've all got decent systems that they could move, for value. They could go acquire assets, or they can just grow their talent and put them out there. Though, between all of these, if you want to not count Shohei Ohtani, the best single player is Kyle Tucker in the AL West. He is the single best prospect from the AL West if you don't count Shohei Ohtani.